She wore a guest's dress, by mistake that night. A millionaire fell for the hotel maid. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Tonight's story begins in the heart of New York City, inside a five-star hotel where a single mistake changes everything. A maid trying to survive one more exhausting shift will accidentally walk into the spotlight of a millionaire's life, and nothing will ever be the same again. Now, let us return to our main character. The ballroom of the Hart Grand Hotel shimmered under golden chandeliers that looked like floating constellations. Soft jazz played in the background as waiters moved through the crowd with trays of champagne. In a service hallway behind the glittering walls, Elena Morales, 27, hurried to finish her shift. Her shoes pinched her feet, her apron was smeared with polish, and her paycheck was already spent on hospital bills. When her supervisor barked, "Someone spilled wine in the east corridor. Fix it now." She grabbed a bucket and ran. Inside the storage room, she noticed a silver evening gown hanging from the back of a chair. A tag still clung to the zipper. Someone from the penthouse must have left it. For a moment she just stared at it. The satin shimmered like moonlight. She wiped her hands on her apron, whispering to herself, "Just 5 minutes. I want to know how it feels to look different." The gown slid over her plain uniform like a secret. She turned toward the mirror, her reflection almost unrecognizable. For the first time in years, she looked like she belonged in that ballroom, beyond the door. The sudden echo of voices made her jump. The staff corridor had opened to the gala by mistake, and before she could step back, someone brushed past her, laughing, "Miss, you are blocking the way." Elena froze. The music, the scent of roses, the flash of crystal glasses all surrounded her. Across the room, Liam Hart, 33, watched the scene unfold. He was the heir to Hart Holdings, a corporate empire of hotels and resorts. His life had been a blur of board meetings, profit charts, and public scandals after his company's latest layoffs. He was tired of smiles that cost him trust and headlines that painted him as heartless. But when his eyes caught the young woman in the silver gown, nervous, out of place, holding her breath, he paused. Their eyes met for just a heartbeat. She looked ready to bolt. Something about her sincerity, bare, untrained, real, cut through the noise around him. Liam's assistant leaned closer. "Sir, your partner for the evening is late. Should I?" He raised a hand slightly. "No need. I think she just arrived." Elena blinked in confusion as the tall man in a tailored suit approached her. "Good evening," he said smoothly. "You must be the guest from the Culinary Institute?" "I think you have the wrong person," she stammered. But before she could explain, the crowd turned as a photographer shouted, "Mr. Hart, one picture for the press!" Without thinking, Liam placed a gentle hand on her back, guiding her toward the camera. Flashbulbs exploded. Elena stood stiffly beside him, clutching the edge of the gown as if it might vanish. The crowd cheered, assuming they were a couple. When the lights dimmed and the music shifted, she whispered, "I need to go. I was not supposed to be here." "Tui." He studied her face for a moment, then spoke softly, "Neither was I." By the time the gala ended, Elena had slipped away through the service door, heart racing, uniform once again replacing the silver gown. She told herself it was over, just a silly accident. Yet somewhere high above the city, Liam Hart replayed that brief moment in his mind, the honesty in her eyes, the way she trembled under the flash of cameras. He did not know her name, but he knew one thing for certain. He had just met someone who did not fit into his world, and that made him want to find her even more. The morning light spilled through the narrow window of Elena's apartment, casting stripes across the peeling wallpaper. Her alarm buzzed, but she was already awake. The memory of the previous night haunted her, the music, the silver gown, the man who had looked at her as if she mattered. It felt like a dream she should never have touched. She shook the thought away, tied her hair, and reached for her cleaning uniform. At the Hart Grand Hotel, whispers had already begun. "Did you see Mr. Hart with that mystery woman?" one hostess murmured. "She vanished before midnight." Elena kept her head down as she clocked in. She prayed no one would connect her to that chaos. But when she stepped into the staff lounge, her manager stood waiting. "Morales," he said sharply, "the executive office wants to see you. Now." Her stomach twisted. She followed the hallway to the top floor, where the carpet changed from worn gray to thick velvet blue. The assistant outside the office gave her a measured glance. "Mr. Hart is expecting you." Elena entered quietly. Liam Hart stood by the window, the Manhattan skyline stretching behind him. He turned when she closed the door. "You left early last night," he said. Her voice shook. "Sir, I am sorry. I did not mean to cause any trouble. I only wore that dress to." He raised a hand, stopping her. "I know what happened. The security footage showed everything. You did not steal anything. And you did not lie. You simply walked into the wrong room at the wrong time." She exhaled slowly, waiting for the inevitable dismissal. But instead, Liam walked closer, his expression unreadable. "You might have heard the rumors about my company," he said. "The board is ready to sell off this hotel because of my reputation. I need to change the narrative fast." Elena blinked. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he replied, "the media is obsessed with the mystery woman from the gala. They believe she is my fiancée. If I deny it now, it will look like a lie, so I need someone to play that role for a while." Her mouth fell open. "You cannot be serious." He nodded once. "Completely serious. 1 month. You attend a few public events, stand beside me for photographs, and keep your real identity confidential. In return, I will pay off the medical debts under your name and ensure your employment here permanently." Elena's mind spun. "Why me? You could hire an actress, someone trained for this." "Because the public already believes in you," he said quietly. "They saw the way you looked at me last night without calculation, without fear. That authenticity cannot be faked." "Joe," she stepped back, shaking her head. "I clean rooms for a living. I do not belong in your world." "Maybe not," he said, "but that is what makes this work. People will believe in us because you are not from my world." Silence filled the room. Outside, car horns echoed faintly through the city. Finally, she asked, "And what happens after the month is over?" Liam's gaze softened. "Then you go back to your life, and I go back to mine. No strings, no expectations, just a contract." "Yo." The word hung between them, cold, sterile, final. He reached into his desk and handed her a folder. Inside, she saw printed clauses and a signature line. 3 rules: do not fall in love, do not speak to the press, and do not break character. Elena let out a shaky laugh. "Rule number 1 sounds impossible." "It is meant to protect you," Liam replied. She stared at the paper, at the pen he had placed beside it. The deal was absurd, but so was her life, unpaid bills, eviction threats, and her mother's voice in memory saying, "Never let the world decide your worth." After what felt like an eternity, she whispered, "All right, I will do it." Liam extended his hand. "Then we have an agreement." Her fingers hesitated before meeting his. The handshake felt like a promise she could not yet understand. As she left his office, the city outside glowed against the glass. Somewhere between fear and disbelief, a strange spark of hope flickered. Elena Morales, the maid no one noticed, was about to become the fiancée of New York's most talked-about millionaire. And though she did not know it yet, that single signature would rewrite both of their lives. 3 days later, the transformation began. The marble suite on the top floor of the Hart Grand Hotel had been turned into something like a finishing school. Racks of evening dresses lined one wall, shoes shimmered in neat rows, and a stylist named Caroline circled Elena with a measuring tape and a critical eye. "Posture," Caroline said, tapping Elena's shoulder lightly. "Chin up. You are no longer a hotel maid. You are the woman every camera wants to see." Elena tried to obey, her back stiff from nerves. "I still clean my own apartment," she murmured. "Good," Caroline replied, not looking up. "That means you are real. Let us keep that part at least." Liam entered the suite mid-afternoon, phone pressed to his ear, his tone clipped and professional. He ended the call and studied her silently. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair pinned, her eyes uncertain. "You look uncomfortable," he said. "I am," she admitted. "This is not me." He nodded once. "That is fine. It does not have to be. It just has to look like you belong." The following week was a blur of rehearsals. Liam coached her on how to walk through a gala, how to hold a wine glass without spilling, how to pause before cameras. She practiced smiling at strangers until her cheeks hurt. At night, when the lessons ended, Elena returned to her small apartment, peeled off the designer clothes, and sat by the window, staring at the lights of the city. She told herself it was only a job. Yet every time she remembered the steady way Liam looked at her without judgment, without pity, her chest tightened in ways she could not name. The first public event arrived sooner than expected, a charity auction at the Metropolitan Hall. The car that picked her up gleamed like liquid silver, and the driver called her Miss Morales with respect that felt borrowed. Inside the hall, flashbulbs erupted the moment they stepped onto the red carpet. Liam's hand rested lightly at the small of her back, guiding her through the storm of cameras. She smiled, exactly as she had been trained. "Just remember," he whispered, slow breathing. "Look at me, not them." For a few moments, she did. The noise faded. The room narrowed to his face. His jaw was tense, his voice steady, but his eyes carried something unexpected, calm, almost protective. The evening moved in a sequence of polite conversations and rehearsed laughter. Elena nodded through introductions, repeating names of investors and socialites she would never meet again. Still, when one of them sneered, "Mr. Hart's taste has changed lately," she felt the sting like a slap. Later, as they stood near the champagne tower, a young reporter approached. "Miss Morales," she said brightly, "rumor has it you and Mr. Hart met in a rather unusual way. Care to share the story?" Elena's pulse quickened. Liam's hand tightened around his glass. He was ready to step in, but she spoke first. "It is true," she said calmly. "We met by accident. I spilled something that was not mine, and ended up learning that mistakes can sometimes lead to purpose." The reporter blinked, caught off guard by the quiet confidence in her voice. "So, what do you admire most about Mr. Hart?" Elena looked at him for a long second. "He listens," she said simply. "And in his world that is a rare thing." The reporter smiled, satisfied, and moved on. When she was out of earshot, Liam turned to her. "That was not in the script," he murmured. She straightened her shoulders. Neither was this entire arrangement. For the first time, he smiled not the corporate one he gave investors, but something real, small, and warm. Hours later, after the event, they returned to the hotel in silence. The city lights reflected off the car windows like falling stars. At the entrance, he opened the door for her, his voice low. "You handled tonight better than I expected. I learned from the best," she said, surprising herself. "Rest," he told her. "Tomorrow will be more demanding." When she stepped out of the car, Elena caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glass doors. The maid uniform was gone, replaced by elegance she barely recognized. But somewhere beneath the silk and jewelry she could still feel the scent of polish and detergent clinging faintly to her hands. She whispered to herself, "Do not forget who you are." Above her, in the suite overlooking the city, Liam Hart stood by the window, watching her walk away. He told himself it was just business, a performance for the cameras. Yet as he replayed her words from the interview he listens, he realized she had seen something in him that no one else had bothered to notice. For the first time in years, he wondered what it might feel like to live a life that was not built entirely on appearances. The next morning, the city buzzed with headlines about the charity event. Photographs of Liam Hart and Elena Morales filled the entertainment pages. The mystery fiancé captivates New York. In the staff cafeteria, hotel workers huddled around a tablet, whispering. Elena avoided their stares, her cheeks burning. The article called her elegant, poised, and mysterious. She barely recognized herself in the description. Upstairs, Liam sat at his desk, reading the same headlines. For once, the coverage was kind. Investors who had been avoiding his calls were suddenly reaching out again. The board was impressed. Still, something in him felt unsettled. This arrangement was working perfectly, and yet the success felt strangely hollow. That afternoon, his assistant reminded him, "Sir, you have etiquette training scheduled with Miss Morales." Liam nodded and met Elena in the ballroom where they had first crossed paths. Today the chandeliers were dimmed, the tables cleared. Caroline, the stylist, hovered nearby with a clipboard. Lesson 5, Caroline announced. Dance posture. Elena's eyes widened. Dance? Liam extended a hand. One slow waltz. It is part of next week's charity gala. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. The orchestra recording began softly from the speakers. He guided her gently, his movements precise. She counted the steps under her breath. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. "You are thinking too much," he said quietly. "I am trying not to step on your shoes." "Then stop trying. Feel the rhythm instead." She exhaled and let herself move with the music. For a moment the room seemed to shrink, the air heavy with a quiet tension neither of them could name. When the song ended, she stepped back quickly, her cheeks flushed. Caroline clapped her hands. "Good enough for tonight? We will continue tomorrow." Elena turned away to hide her smile, but Liam saw it. It was small, unguarded, and far too genuine for the boundaries of their agreement. Later that week, they attended a luncheon with potential donors. Elena handled the introductions gracefully, even joking lightly with a senator's wife about the perils of champagne stains. Liam watched her in quiet admiration. When one guest mocked her modest background, Elena simply replied, "I believe where we come from matters less than what we give back." The table fell silent, and the senator's wife nodded approvingly. After the event, as their car drove through midtown traffic, Liam spoke without looking at her. "You surprised them." "I was just honest," she said. "People can tell when you are pretending." He smiled faintly. "That might be why they like you." The following days blurred into fittings, luncheons, and meetings. The story of their engagement spread across social media. Every photograph showed Liam's hand at her back. Every caption called them the city's most unexpected couple. But the closer they became in public, the more Elena struggled in private. At night, she could barely sleep. She would lie awake, wondering where the performance ended and where her heart began. Each time Liam smiled at her, she felt her resolve slip further from the rules she had signed. One evening, after a long charity dinner, they returned to the hotel rooftop. The city glittered below them, restless and endless. Elena leaned on the railing, her dress fluttering in the cold wind. "I do not think I belong here," she said softly. Liam turned to her. "Why?" "Because every time someone looks at me, they see a story that is not mine. They see a woman who fits beside you. But that woman is a lie." He was silent for a moment. "Do you think I do not feel the same? Every person in that room only sees a name on a magazine cover. They do not see the man behind it." She met his eyes. "Then who is the man behind it?" His voice lowered. "Someone who forgot what real feels like until he met you." The words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. For the first time, she did not know how to answer. The city hummed below them, and the sound of the wind filled the silence between them. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "You should not say things like that. It breaks rule number 1. Pavo, why?" He nodded slowly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Then maybe that rule was flawed from the start. Neither of them moved. The contract still existed, the boundaries still written in ink, but something unspoken had already changed. What began as a performance was slowly becoming something neither of them could control, and neither was ready to admit it yet. A week later, the world of glitter and champagne felt like a second skin Elena could never quite grow into. Every morning brought new headlines about the perfect couple, and every night ended with her staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer she could keep pretending. One Thursday afternoon, Liam called her to the executive lounge. The skyline stretched behind him like a painted backdrop. He looked unusually tense. "The board has approved the press conference for next week," he said. "It will finalize my position with the company and silence the rumors." She nodded slowly. "What do you need me to do?" "Stand beside me," he said. "Smile. Tell them what they want to hear." Elena folded her hands together. "That seems to be all I ever do lately." He frowned. "You agreed to this." "I know," she said, "but I did not agree to forget who I am." Liam's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He answered quickly, speaking in clipped tones. When he hung up, his expression had changed. "We have a problem. Someone has leaked part of our contract." Kagubal. Her heart dropped. "What?" "An anonymous email sent it to several news outlets," he said. "They are asking for confirmation. My publicist can stall for a day, maybe 2. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "Everyone will know the truth." "Not if we control the story first," he said. "We will say the rumors are false and that you are being targeted because of your background." "That means lying again," she said quietly. He looked at her, frustration flickering in his eyes. "This is business, Elena. We are too far in to fall apart now." She shook her head. "It might be business to you, but it is my life. When the truth comes out, I will be the one humiliated, not you." He took a step closer. "Do you think I do not care about that?" She met his gaze. "Then prove it." Silence filled the room. The distance between them felt wider than ever. Finally, Liam turned away. "We will figure it out," he said quietly. "For now, keep your head high. Act normal." Oh. The next day, the tension was impossible to ignore. Reporters lingered outside the hotel lobby, flashes of cameras breaking through the glass doors. Inside, whispers spread among the staff. Caroline tried to reassure Elena during a fitting, but her voice was strained. "It will pass," she said. "It always does." That evening, as Elena walked through the service corridor, she overheard 2 employees gossiping. "I heard she was paid to play his girlfriend," one said. "All that elegance? A setup." Elena stopped mid-step, her chest tightening. She turned back toward the elevator, but before she reached it, Liam's assistant approached. "Mr. Hart wants to see you," Now, when she entered his office, he was standing behind his desk, phone in hand, face pale. "The story is out," he said. "Every outlet has it." On the large screen behind him, headlines screamed in bold letters. "The Cinderella Contract. Billionaire's Love Story. A Publicity Stunt. Pramin." Elena stared at the images, her face beside his, every smile now framed as a lie. "They know everything," she whispered. Liam set the phone down slowly. "They know what they want to believe." Her voice trembled. "And what do you believe?" He looked at her, the answer caught somewhere between guilt and longing. "I believe I made a mistake letting it get this far." She nodded, her throat tightening. "So do I." "Why?" Without another word, she removed the diamond bracelet he had given her for appearances and placed it on the desk. "I kept my end of the deal," she said. "Now it is over." "Elena." But she was already walking toward the door. When it closed behind her, the room felt unbearably silent. Liam stared at the bracelet, its polished surface catching the city lights. For the first time in his life, he had all the power in the world and no idea how to use it to fix what truly mattered. The rain began the next morning, soft and relentless, soaking the streets of Manhattan in a gray shimmer. Elena sat on a bench outside the community shelter, clutching a paper cup of coffee gone cold. The scandal had spread everywhere. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages she refused to read. Every headline carried her name, twisting it into something she no longer recognized. She had not gone back to the hotel. The apartment she rented above a bakery was quiet, too quiet. When she tried to sleep, her mind replayed Liam's words, "I believe I made a mistake letting it get this far." It was strange how quickly something that had felt real could vanish into rumor. At the same time, in the corner office of Hart Holdings, Liam faced the consequences of his own making. The board of directors demanded an emergency meeting. One executive slammed a newspaper onto the table. "You turned a crisis into a spectacle," he said coldly. "Our shareholders are furious." Emily. Liam did not argue. He only said, "I will handle it." After the meeting, his assistant followed him into the hallway. "Sir, people are saying she was never more than a prop. Maybe you should issue a statement." Liam stopped walking. "No," he said quietly. "No more lies." That evening, he sat in his penthouse, watching the rain slide down the glass. The city lights blurred in streaks of gold and silver. On the coffee table lay the bracelet Elena had left behind. He picked it up, turning it in his hand. For the first time, the silence of success felt like punishment. Across town, Elena helped stack boxes of donated clothes at the shelter. The director, a kind woman named Ruth, touched her arm gently. "You can hide from cameras," she said, "but not from what is in your heart. What are you going to do next?" "I am not sure," Elena said softly. "Maybe start over somewhere no one knows my name." Ruth smiled. "Or you could stay and prove them wrong." "Tull?" The words lingered with her. She looked at the people waiting in line outside, the tired, the forgotten, the ones no headline would ever care about. Something inside her steadied. She could not control what the world believed, but she could decide what came next. 2 days later, a black car pulled up in front of the shelter. Reporters followed, their cameras flashing. Liam stepped out, wearing no tie, no prepared smile. He looked exhausted but determined. The moment he entered the lobby, every conversation stopped. "Elena," he said, spotting her near the back. She froze. "You should not be here." "I know," he said, "but I needed to see you." The cameras were already rolling outside, pressing against the glass doors. She crossed her arms. "If you came to manage another headline, you are wasting your time." He shook his head. "I came because you were right. We lied to the world, but I lied most to myself." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" He took a breath. "I told myself this was business, that it was only a contract, but it stopped being that a long time ago. I fell in love with you, Elena, and I did nothing to protect you when it mattered." Her eyes widened, her voice low. "You do not have to say that in front of them." "I am not saying it for them," he replied. "I am saying it because it is true." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I am going to fix this. Tomorrow, there will be a press conference. No lawyers, no scripts, just honesty. I will tell them what really happened and what you mean to me." She shook her head slowly. "That will ruin your career." "Then it will be worth something for once," he said. The sound of cameras outside grew louder. Someone shouted his name. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the maid and the millionaire, two people who had built their lives on opposite sides of truth. Finally, she whispered, "Do what you have to do." He smiled faintly, the rain still glistening on his coat. "For the first time I intend to." As he turned to leave, Elena watched him step into the downpour without an umbrella. The crowd swarmed him, microphones flashing, voices shouting. But he did not stop. He walked straight through the chaos, head high, as if he had already made peace with whatever storm waited next. The following morning, the city woke to a wave of anticipation. News outlets announced that Liam Hart would hold a live press conference at noon. The speculation was endless. Some said he would resign. Others claimed he would blame Elena for the deception. Elena stood by the small television in the shelter kitchen, folding towels as volunteers gathered around. Her stomach churned. Ruth placed a hand on her shoulder. "You do not have to watch," she said gently. "Yes, I do," Elena replied. "He said he would tell the truth." Tau. At exactly 12, the broadcast began. Cameras flashed as Liam stepped onto the stage at the Hart Holdings headquarters. He wore a dark suit, but his face carried none of the polished confidence people were used to seeing. The crowd fell silent. "Good afternoon," he began. "For weeks, the public has followed a story that was never meant to exist. You were told that I was engaged to a woman who lived a fairy tale life. That story is false. The truth is much simpler and far more human." He paused, glancing briefly at the sea of microphones. Elena Morales was not a celebrity, nor a socialite. She was an employee of this very hotel, a woman who gave me more honesty in one evening than I had received in years. What began as a public arrangement became something real, not because of contracts, but because of character. "If anyone should be blamed, it is me." Gasps rippled through the room. A reporter shouted, "Are you admitting that you lied to the public?" Liam nodded. "Yes. And I am also admitting that I fell in love with her. Not the image of her, not the idea of saving my reputation, but her. The person who reminded me that integrity is not a weakness." The reporters erupted with questions, but Liam raised his hand. "Before this, I thought leadership meant control. Now I understand it means accountability. I will not be resigning. Instead, I am establishing the Hart Opportunity Fund, dedicated to advancing employees who come from working-class backgrounds. Miss Morales inspired that. Whether she forgives me or not, I owe her the truth." The broadcast ended in chaos, questions flying, cameras flashing, but Liam's words echoed across every screen in the country. Back at the shelter, the room was completely silent. Elena's throat tightened. Ruth whispered, "He did it." Elena could not speak. The screen showed Liam leaving the podium, surrounded by reporters, yet his expression was calm-free somehow. Within hours, public opinion began to shift. Social media filled with comments calling his confession brave, his foundation idea revolutionary. But all Elena could think about was how still her heart felt for the first time in weeks. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Liam arrived quietly at the shelter. The volunteers let him in without question. He found her sorting boxes in the back room. "You saw it?" he said softly. "Yes," she answered. "You meant every word?" "Every one of them." "Hao si." She studied his face, searching for the trace of the man she had first met, the one who hid behind control. He looked different now, lighter, as if the truth itself had set him free. "I did not ask for a grand gesture," she said. "I know," he replied. "But it was not for you. It was for me. I needed to stop living behind mirrors." She crossed her arms, uncertain. "You may have just destroyed everything you built." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe it is time to build something better." Sol. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of city traffic drifted in through the open window. Finally, she said, "You still have a long way to prove that you mean it." "I will prove it," he said quietly. "Not with promises, through actions." Elena nodded slowly, her defenses softening. "Then start by helping us tonight. The shelter needs more volunteers." Without hesitation, Liam rolled up his sleeves. For the next few hours, he carried boxes, served meals, and listened to stories from the people he had once ignored. When he glanced at Elena across the crowded room, she was smiling faintly, not the polite smile from galas, but something real. In that moment, under the dim fluorescent lights of the shelter, Liam Hart finally understood what wealth was meant to be used for and what love was truly built on. 2 months later, spring arrived in the city. The air felt lighter, and so did everything around the Hart Grand Hotel. The headlines that once condemned Liam Hart had turned into stories of redemption. The Hart Opportunity Fund had officially launched, providing scholarships and housing support for hundreds of hotel workers and their families. What had started as a scandal had become a quiet movement of change. Elena still worked at the shelter part-time, helping Ruth organize new community programs. Her days were filled with small, steady acts of rebuilding. The fame that had once suffocated her had faded away, replaced by the calm rhythm of ordinary life. One afternoon, while she was unpacking boxes of donated food, a familiar voice echoed from behind her. "You really do not know how to rest, do you?" She turned. Liam stood in the doorway, wearing a simple gray shirt instead of the designer suits he once lived in. His sleeves were rolled up, his expression calm. "What are you doing here?" she asked, though her heart already knew. He held up a small envelope. "I came to deliver this personally. It is for the shelter, the first round of funding from the foundation." She accepted it carefully. "You could have sent someone else." "I could have," he said, "but I wanted to see you." They stood in the quiet of the storeroom for a moment. Finally, Elena said, "The press still talks about you, you know, about how you changed everything." "Tambien." Liam smiled faintly. "They talk less about me now and more about the people who work here. That is how it should be." She looked at him, studying the way his confidence had softened into humility. "You seem different," she said. "I am," he replied. "I used to think success was measured by what people saw. Now I know it is about what you leave behind." Ruth entered with a clipboard and stopped short when she saw them. "Mr. Hart," she said warmly, "we could use your help carrying boxes again, if you are not too busy saving the world." He laughed lightly. "I will never be too busy for that." As the afternoon went on, they worked side by side, sorting canned goods and stacking supplies. Every so often their hands brushed, and Elena felt a spark that both frightened and comforted her. When the last box was sealed, she wiped her hands and turned toward him. "You kept your promise," she said. He looked at her curiously. "Which one?" "You said you would prove it through actions, not words." He nodded. "I meant it, but there is something else I need to do." Elena frowned. "What is that?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. Inside was the same photograph that had appeared in every newspaper months ago, him and her at the gala, smiling under the lights. "This image started everything," he said. "I used to hate it. Now I see it as a reminder of where we began." She took the photograph carefully, her voice quiet. "And where do you think we are now?" He met her eyes. "At a beginning that is finally real." The air between them felt heavy with things left unsaid. Finally, Elena smiled softly. "You should go. There is still work to be done here." He nodded, slipping his hands into his pockets. "Then I will come back tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" she asked. "Every day, if you let me." Naminsha. Her laugh was small but genuine. "We will see." As Liam walked out into the late afternoon sunlight, the city noise rose around him. Buses, chatter, the rhythm of life continuing. For the first time in years, he felt no weight of expectation, no fillet to maintain. He glanced once more through the shelter window and saw Elena talking with Ruth, smiling as the light caught her hair. He realized that love, real love, was not about ownership or perfection. It was about showing up again and again until the walls between two worlds finally disappeared. A full year passed before anyone realized how much had changed. The Hart Grand Hotel, once the symbol of excess, had become the headquarters for the Hart Opportunity Foundation. Its marble lobby now held a wall of photographs of employees who had graduated from training programs, single mothers who had received housing, and former staff members who had become managers. At the center of the display, under soft lighting, hung a framed photo of the woman who had unknowingly started it all. Elena Morales rarely visited the upper floors anymore. She preferred the community center downtown, where the foundation funded a new outreach kitchen called Open Hands. It was her idea, a mobile soup program that traveled across boroughs to serve people who were invisible to everyone else. She stood in the back of the van one crisp morning, handing out bowls of soup, her hair tied back, the city waking behind her. A familiar car pulled up nearby. Liam stepped out, carrying a box of supplies. His sleeves were rolled again, his hair slightly disheveled from the wind. He had never stopped coming back, just as he had promised. "You are early," she said with a smile. "You are always here before dawn," he replied. "I had to try and keep up." Led. They worked in silence for a while, the kind of quiet that felt easy between them now. After the crowd thinned, Liam reached into his coat pocket and held out a small velvet pouch. "I brought you something," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "You already donate enough." "This is not a donation," he said softly. Inside the pouch was a silver necklace, simple and delicate. Hanging from it was a charm shaped like a heart, engraved with two words, "Best mistake." Elena laughed quietly, her eyes bright. "You kept that phrase." "I think it suits us," he said. "We both made mistakes that led us exactly where we needed to be." For a moment, neither spoke. Then he took a slow breath. Elena, I know we started as a contract and a lie, but everything after that was real. I am not asking for another arrangement. I am asking for a life one that we build together, honestly this time. Her hand trembled slightly as she closed the necklace in her palm. You are serious? He nodded. Completely. No cameras, no scripts, just us. She looked out at the city, the skyline glowing with early sunlight, and felt the weight of every memory between them. The girl who had once borrowed a stranger's dress was gone. The woman standing here had earned her own place in the world. Finally, she turned back to him and smiled. All right, she said softly, but only if we keep helping others along the way. Always, he promised. He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. Around them, the city moved, trucks honked, children laughed. The smell of coffee drifted from a nearby cart, but for that moment, it all faded into quiet. Later that evening, at the hotel's anniversary gala, guests gathered under the same chandeliers where they had first met. On a table near the stage sat a framed photograph of the silver gown, the one that had begun everything, placed beside a simple maid's uniform. A small plaque beneath it read, "Mistakes can change everything if you are brave enough to own them." As the lights dimmed and the crowd applauded the year's achievements, Elena and Liam stood together at the edge of the room. He leaned closer and whispered, "Do you ever think about that night?" She smiled. "Every time I see silver." He laughed quietly, slipping his arm around her. And as music filled the room, they danced not for cameras or appearances, but for themselves. The maid and the millionaire finally equal, finally home in a world they had rebuilt with honesty, grace, and love.